Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's always hard to get this going. People are happy to see each other. Happy New Year to everyone here. It's good to be here. Welcome to the January 18th, 2022 Board of Education meeting. Could we have a roll call, please?
Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Thank you. All right, so let's go. The first item on our agenda is written communication. Dr. Bavis, do we have any written communication?
Yes. Since resuming in-person meetings, the board secretary no longer reads comments or written communication into the record as we did during remote meetings. Written communication was received and forwarded to board members from John Kennedy Farrell and members of the English department, Amy Moore and members of the Fine Arts department, Luis A. Nunez Amaro, and Cecilia Rice and members of the Special Education department.
Thank you. And the board has received that.
Yes.
All right, the next item is items for information, and the first few items, Dr. Witherspoon, are you going to talk us through this?
Sure am.
This is awesome.
Well, good evening, board. This is starting to be a little bit of deja vu all over again because I stand up here each year with financial awards that the district has won. And these are two of the very most important ones, but it's interesting that under the leadership of Mary Rodino, this board has won every one of the financial awards that it can qualify for now for many consecutive years. But Mary, if you'd come up here, I'd like to present two awards to you. The first is the Popular Annual Financial Report Award for 2020, FY20. And let me just read what it says about this award. Oh, by the way, you see these? These are all the consecutive years we've now won this award. And listen to what this award is about. Government Finance Officers Association has awarded Evanston Township High School, District 202, its award for outstanding achievement in popular annual financial reporting. In order to receive the award, an entity must produce high-quality, popular annual financial reports specifically designed to be readily accessible and easily understood to the general public and other interested parties without those without a background in public finance. Now get this, 36 school districts across the country received this award, and only 3 of those are here in Illinois. Now, I'm going to repeat that. There are 14,000 school districts in the United States, and 36 school districts across the country have received this award this year.
Wow.
Our district created this report 9 years ago, and we have received this award for 9 consecutive years ever since we created it. It has evolved. It has improved, so it's nice to be award-winning the first year and just keep getting better. And it is not a required document, but it is an essential document for transparency and for communicating to the public how the taxpayer dollars are being spent. And while I'm giving accolades to Mary, I also want to give accolades to Kathy Meals, because she does our writing and reporting for it and works closely with Mary to put it together. And this great team and Kendra put together a report that is once again 9 consecutive years, one of 36 outstanding popular financial reports in the nation. Mary, congratulations.
Thank you.
Listen, that was about as long as I could hold that thing up. That is really a heavy award, but so is this one. And this is the CAFR Award. This is the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for FY20. Again, I'll point out that each of these represents consecutive years that we have now won this award ever since we first applied for it and qualified for it. And listen to this award. The Government Finance Officers Association has awarded Evanston Township High School District 202 the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for having met or exceeded the program's high standards for financial reporting and accountability. Now remember, there are over 800, I just got to give context. There are over 800 school districts in Illinois, and there are 14,000 school districts in the United States. 25 school districts in Illinois and 539 school districts across the United States have received this award for this year. And our district has received it since the first year that we applied, 12 consecutive years, the CAFR Award. Mary, congratulations. And that concludes that part of the report. But then, Mary, you're up next because she's going to share this year's popular annual financial report with the board and the public.
Wow, Mary, while you come up, then I'll take the opportunity to just say to you and to your team how much we appreciate you. And just really thank you for this. And, you know, those numbers are really, really impressive. And I appreciate you saying them, Dr. Witherspoon, every time, because I like to hear them.
I can't resist.
It's really great. So, Mary, thank you. And one quick question. Where are the awards on display?
If you come into our office, there's an entire wall of them, because until they started producing those marble awards that hold 10 buttons, one for each year, they would send us a plaque each year. And you get to a point, I don't mean this in a bad way, but you get to a point where you're like, where are we going to put this one?
Another award.
So if you look in where Felicia, our office secretary, sits, there's probably, not for the popular annual, because that was a new report, as Eric described, but between budget and financial reports, there's probably 20 different plaques, I would say.
Super.
Because we do have another, the CAFR wins a second award from the Association of School Business Officials.
Right.
And I can't remember if we talk about that or present that one in a separate meeting or not. And since COVID, I've kind of just forgotten how we used to do things. So the CAFR does have 2 awards, and they do still send a plaque every year for that one. So.
Thank you.
But thank you for all of your praise, everyone. We appreciate it. And thank you, Kathy, for helping us get that report out every year. And it always seems to happen that, like right after we get notified of the previous year's award, it's time for us to present to you the new popular annual report, which we just finished in December. And you know, in December, we also brought to you the finished CAFR financial report. And I do want to say the popular annual financial report is an optional one, but the CAFR that we all saw in February and the board accepted, that is a required report, but districts can do a little bit to report their financials, or they can do a lot. And so if you do a lot, you can apply for these award programs for transparency and I guess I would say thorough financial reporting. So I just have a few slides, and I don't think I'm ever up first, except that one time we had a Zoom blip and something happened to Pete's computer. But I just have a few things to tell you about the popular annual financial report in general. We're not going to get into any specific numbers or anything, because you've seen that in the CAFR and the budget. So this is more of a fun report that can be kind of read by anyone. We have taken some constructive criticism. Kathy and I have worked in the fall when the award program does give us some constructive advice on displaying additional graphs and charts and things, because they really want to make it interesting to the reader. So you all have a printed copy in your packet. We'll also be sending this out to all staff. It's already on our website, but we wanted to it's on the website because we have to apply for the award in December, but we wanted to wait until you saw it to distribute any additional copies or send it to staff. We no longer mail it to every household in the city, but we do plan to have it out at any in-person events so people can have a printed copy if they want. So just a little bit about what this report is. We also call it the ETHS Digest. That's what people know it by. And it's a document that's intended to convey the results of our operations to the stakeholders of our operations that don't necessarily have, as Eric said, a background in finance. So it's really an overview of financial and other highlights from our year. It includes things like enrollment numbers, the board goals, a budget strategy, and highlights of our revenues and expenses, as well as highlights of events and awards that the students have achieved from in the past year. So it summarizes the financial information from the CAFR, which, as you all know, is about 150 pages of really boring financial reporting and a couple of pages of interesting data in the CAFR. But it also, the popular report also includes charts and graphs, including expenses by function, revenues by source, and enrollment trends. It highlights accomplishments, as I mentioned before, and talks about some budget challenges that we typically have from year to year. So some of the actual articles include revenue highlights, or where does the money come from. Talks about our main funding sources, including a property tax explanation. Talks about things like property tax caps, evidence-based funding, COVID uncertainties, and state aid. Then we have expense highlights, or where does the money go? And that section highlights the sources of expenditures, including mostly salaries and benefits, which is the biggest part of our expenses. And it talks about and summarizes other categories such as purchase services, supplies, capital, and tuition paid to outside schools. Then under the programs and awards, we typically talk about ETHS's national rankings and different accolades that the school receives nationally. This year we talked about the return to in-person instruction for the 21-22 school year. We talked about the superintendent's retirement and growing or garden spaces at ETHS, of which we have a few now. We talked about the official naming of Black Lives Matter Way on Dodge Avenue. And we had some updates from the foundation. And that's it. I doubt you have any questions, but if you do, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you once again. It really is great to read through this and have this. And it's very well laid out. So thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Let's see. The next item is report on student involvement.
And I'm going to invite our team up to this presentation table. We have our athletic director, our director of student activities, our fine arts department chair, and our community services coordinator. So Chris, Denise, Nick, and Diana, you're on.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us here tonight. We're very excited to be able to share a diverse picture of our students' involvement here at ETHS. I'm joined tonight by our talented colleagues of mine. I have Diana Politan, who is our community service coordinator, Nick Gale, who is our fine arts department chair, and Chris Liventino, who is our athletic director. And my name is Denise Clark, and I am the new Student Activities Director here at ETHS. Collectively, we'll provide data and knowledge to paint a picture, a better understanding of what our students' involvement looks like here at ETHS, and areas of growth and opportunity amongst our departments and as a whole, as we stay aligned to our district goal of the student well-being goal. As you can see here, over the years, and countless times before, we always talk about getting involved whenever we have the opportunity with our students here at ETHS, from student activities to fine arts, athletics, and our community service department. We truly focus on the experience outside the classroom. This has led to the creation of our extracurricular philosophy, which we can see here on the slide. It's long, so you guys can read it if you need to. But I wanted to highlight 3 points out of this philosophy. The first point is that when students take on extracurricular activities, it has a positive effect on their learning and their engagement. The second is that extracurriculars offer an opportunity for development in areas of leadership, self-discipline, self-confidence, and students' well-being. But also, extracurricular helps to shape and create our next leaders and role models here at ETHS and for the world. Benjamin Franklin said, "Tell me, and I'll forget. Show me, and I may remember. Involve me, and I will learn." Now we're going to look at some highlights from our different departments, and we're going to start here with athletics from Chris Livatino.
Awesome. Thank you, Denise. You know, I think I have to just start off by saying and acknowledging the incredible, I would even call it heroic effort of our coaches and our student athletes and staff for being able to run 33 different sports programs last year in the middle of a pandemic. Between the contact days, which is a new twist that the IHSA has never provided before, and the actual seasons themselves, I think we actually had more touch points with our student athletes than we've ever had in the past. And I think most notably, we did it safely. And we had one team the entire year that had to be quarantined for a 14-day period, where all the other schools around us, that was just commonplace. And it would only happen to us one time. So it was really a remarkable year last year, and I just really want to thank our coaches and our student athletes for following all the guidance and doing all the right things. And it allowed us to have, like I said, 33 sports, over 100 teams, and about 1,350 student athletes participate in an entire year of athletics. The GPA continues to be really something we're extremely proud of for our student athletes. We averaged just below a 4.0 for all 1,356 of our student athletes measured, which is the highest average we've ever had. Now, I do know that grades in general had a little bit of a bump last year, but in respect and differentiated towards non-student athletes, we continue to excel. So I'm really proud of their efforts in the classroom. In competition, we had an outstanding year. Unfortunately, some of our best teams were in seasons and sports where we weren't allowed to have an IHSA state championship. Boys basketball actually made it to the state championship or final tournament where they finished second place, but it was an unofficial tournament. But we had 6 total teams finish in the top 10. Boys basketball, girls swimming and diving was ranked 4th in the state. Girls lacrosse was ranked 5th, probably the best girls lacrosse team that we've ever had in the history of ETHS. And girls water polo also ranked 5th. Boys track and field did have a state series, and they were able to finish 6th, and girls track and field finished 9th. That's as good a year as we've had in a long time. And again, it was in the amidst a pandemic, and I'm really proud of all those teams and the other 27 that had great seasons as well. Probably on an individual basis, we had a student athlete do something that no one has done during my tenure, and at least in the last several decades, and that's Khalil Johnson won 2 state championships in both the hurdle events downstate, and is now running track and field at Iowa. Just an incredible young man, great student, a great athlete, and girls track and field team without any upperclassmen, without any seniors, took a state championship in the 4x200 and a runner-up in the 4x400. So they're all coming back again this year, so we're excited to see what they can do. So those are just a few of the highlights from athletics, and I'll turn it back over to Denise to talk about, or no, to Diana to talk about community service.
All right, so for community service, we partnered with many of our student leaders in the community service club, in the civics classes, in senior studies, and beyond to put on different service opportunities. So actually each semester we were able to hold 35 plus different opportunities in person and online to do different types of service, whether that was reaching out to others to fundraise, if it was doing online baking sessions and distributing those things to local soup kitchens, or even doing food pantries and distribution days. What was really even more powerful is that we were able to do these online, all online activities, such as our fall and spring virtual service fairs, the 2-day virtual civics fair that included like over 50 plus partners, and our entire sophomore class to meet all these different organizations. In our Emerge program, which is a leadership program that's been running for 10+ years now, typically each year we have about 30 students who participate. And even in a virtual format, we actually grew and had over 140 students participate online every other week, meeting and developing their own service projects for that year. Possibly, I think the most powerful service activities for me were those, of course, all of them were student-run, but our students organized 5 different canned food drives here at school, where they not just collected cans, but distributed them to our families. They had about 70+ families who came every time that we held these, and they were always looking for more. And our numbers don't really capture actually all the other things that our students did, including starting online tutoring programs, doing childcare, and beyond all of that. I'll pass it to Nick. No, there. It's on now.
Now it's on? Okay, thank you. I was like looking around. Thank you, everybody. I know earlier it looked like everyone's was red, so I was like, oh, red.
You're the theater guy, right?
Got it. First off, one thing I want to acknowledge is thank you for having us all here tonight. But I've been to a few schools now, all for good reasons. And one of the things that I don't think can be said enough is the amount of collaboration that can happen across these departments. To be in a place where we're focusing on involvement and recognizing that involvement can look a lot of different ways for every student, I think is really something special. So thank you for your support in the collaboration amongst this group and recognizing and valuing each of our areas as one large goal of getting all students involved. As I looked back to last year for Fine Arts, I'm incredibly proud of the work that our staff and students did. One of the things I think everybody tried to do, education was brought online, but bringing performances online was an incredible task, and trying to not just re-envision what that can look like from a performance standpoint, but how do we even do that with technology and equipment? And, in the theater world or the dance world, students are preparing over a period of time for one moment at the end. And going through that experience, not knowing what that end product was going to look like, and even if all students could prepare or participate by the end, was like another mental hurdle to get there. Understudies have never been a huge part of our practice for a number of reasons, and now we can see why they're so valuable. But overall, our staff did an incredible job of continuing to create performing opportunities for our students. From Yamo, just sent you the link, and Stranded Views from Quarantine. Those were some of the productions that we put on. Our ETHS jazz program recorded Soul Stew that featured a number of people in this room, as well as alum Chris Green, who's coming back to our jazz festival in a couple weeks. And local recording engineer Jim Tullio. So even creating unique learning experiences for our students when everything was so challenging was a challenge that our staff took on, accepted, and I think we're really successful in. In addition, in the art department, our senior showcase went online as well. We had 18 students participate there, and we were able to provide a couple $1,000s worth of scholarship. And our dance company was able to create a virtual Transcend program. And one of the main benefits we learned was that, while there was so many challenges to our process and learning new equipment and really learning how to be mini Hollywood here at ETHS, we also learned that it allowed students to share their art form with a bunch of people who otherwise wouldn't have seen it. They were able to share the links and the recordings with family across the country, in some cases across the world. Grandparents got to see their grandchildren perform for the first time in a long time. And so, while there were so many challenges going on in our world and in our local community, we were trying to focus on just some of those silver linings that really came through with our online performances. So, thank you. Denise? I'm going to turn this off.
I asked her if I could just butt in just for a quick second. As Nick was talking, I'm talking on about our kids and our coaches and the incredible job they did, but I realized that a lot of our competitions, we weren't allowed to have spectators. And the person and persons that really made that possible for us for family at home in Evanston and also around the country was really our AV department. William Jenkins and Kathy Weidman and Chris May just did an incredible job. And I know I don't have to tell you guys because of all the work they've done for you, but they really saved the day for a lot of families that didn't get a chance to see their children in action. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Great point, Chris. They do amazing work here for all of us. To talk about student activities it makes me happy. I used to be a part of the department before I became the director, so I've been able to see all aspects of what our department can do and how we've grown. And to talk about our chess team finished 4th place at the ISHA State Championship during this time in our world where things were just different. They were practicing outside with their mask on when the weather permitted, table with glass in between them. We're really learning the techniques from the coaches. We have over 75 coaches, some of them who are volunteers, who give up their time throughout the week and on the weekends to be with our students to teach them their craft. And really, they love what they do. So it's just amazing people that we work with also in student activities. We hosted the IHSA Scholastic Bowl here, sectionals, and ETHS placed 2nd. It was a fantastic experience for me because I haven't been able to experience that before, and our Scholastic team were phenomenal. They taught us about what they do, where they get the information from, how they compete, what does what, and it was just great to be a part of that and to see the students be so excited. And like I said, we held that here at ETHS with 7 different teams. We were in 8 different rooms. All the teams had to be separated from each other, but it was a fun and a great experience. And we are able to say that ETHS's mock trial earned the title of state champions this past year here at ETHS, and they were 8th in the nation. So it's fantastic. I mean, and these kids were so excited. I'll tell you more as we get along with our next couple of slides. But we were able to go to house and give trophies to our students and goodie bags as a way to show them that we cared. So our department drove around to each student's house to give them a token of appreciation for their hard work being state champions. Our student council department with Ms. Cooper, who's no longer with us, Kathy Weidman, Kathy Roseman, and Nicole Boyd, they were able to do some of the most amazing stuff online with our student body, creating Happy Friday videos, doing such amazing work during this time period with our students virtually and in person. And then also we have this cool thing called esports. Didn't know anything about it, but I learned when the students wanted to get involved. And they had a big team of about 20 kids who really put forth the effort, and they became the fall major champions for esports here at ETHS. So we have such a variety of students getting involved, from things like Cartoon Club to esports and state champion mock trial teams here, that it just brings me joy to be part of this great, amazing student activities department. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nick Gale. There, it's on.
The good news is this is the last time I talk, I think. All right, we're going to go through just a series of data points, and I want to apologize to the board. We did make I made a few changes to this after the data had already been submitted through the board packet. So this slide will be different up here on the board. So this is the only one. As you continue to look at the data in the next several slides, I just want to remind you that these numbers are based off of the student group that's in the building. So for example, 37% of students in the building participated in athletics, 17% of the students in the building participated in community service. As I mentioned before, and again, thank you to the support of the board, and to this group as well, one of our goals is to get every student involved in something, whatever that looks like. So as of last year, we had 58% of the students enrolled participated in at least one extracurricular, which means one experience in one of our 4 areas. And you can see how that broke down, again, as a reflection of the larger student body. And this does mean that some students could have also participated in athletics and community service, and they would have been represented in both of those numbers below. This slide is specific to athletics, fine arts, and student activities by federal race code. And again, this is the percentage of students within that group. So 66% of our Asian student population participated in one of those things. I'll give you an opportunity to read through those. This is participation by grad year. You know, one of the things that was unique to last year was thinking about the students who have yet to be in our building. You know, specifically our incoming freshman students, thinking about how could we get them involved in ways that, you know, again, they weren't here in the hallways, so we could talk to them. We couldn't share information in the same way. So those are some of the challenges that we went through. But then again, we were also able to find some successes and found new approaches to reaching students. Participation by income status as well as IEP status. One of the things that we had thought about was how do these numbers compare to the past? And one of the challenges is, you know, when we put two numbers next to each other, it almost serves as a comparison. And I don't know if we can really compare you know, what last year looked like compared with the past. So as I looked at these numbers, rather than trying to see did it increase or decrease, it was more a question of how do these numbers fare given the constraints we were under, you know, given the circumstances, given that some students weren't even in the building all year. Some students had to battle challenges like safety, childcare at home, other responsibilities, transportation, you know, maybe some factors that weren't there in a typical year. But one of the things that I know that Fine Arts did, as well as all of the groups, was really try to provide a number of different ways for students to engage with an activity, whether that was strictly online, in person, a hybrid of both, but really just trying to create opportunities for all students to engage, regardless of what that looked like. And then participation by gender. Now, as Ms. Clark started our presentation talking about some of the benefits that we believe happen when students get involved, and one of the things she had mentioned was academics. And if you look here at all of these numbers, one thing that you will see off to the right is the differential between students who participated in one activity, their cumulative GPA, as compared to students who did not participate. And if you look at semester 1 and semester 2 off to the far right, you're going to see a positive connection between those who participated as compared to those who didn't. And this is just my opinion here, but I think these are significant numbers. I mean, looking at a 0.7 increase for some students in regards to GPA, there's a big difference between a 3.0 and a 2.3. You know, so one of the reasons why we continuously try and encourage students to get engaged and to continuously try and come up with these different areas is because we are seeing data like this that might not be a direct correlation, but tells us that we're doing something right. And if all students can tap into that, we can help all students grow in different ways. All right, I'm going to pass this on to Diana now for some community service data.
Do you think that number should be 17? Okay, and just to note that this number should also say 17%.
This one
Is right?
is right.
Oh, okay, never mind. It's right, Nick says. So we see almost 1/4 of students enrolled recorded their community service hours. So a big part of what we do as an office is we help students keep track of their hours, and we help them put it into a service transcript, which is an official ETHS document for them that they can use to, reflect on their experiences as they apply for jobs or scholarships and so on. We saw that about 2/5 of those students who did turn in hours, they did more than 5 hours, and about 3/5 of those students, they did less than 5 hours. This is another breakdown by participation by federal race code. So just to note also, in comparing this data to last year, every demographic group actually dropped between 16 to 20% from the previous year. So the gap that we see is still something that we've seen in years prior as well, between Asian students and white students, as well as with Black and Latino students. Here's the breakdown by participation by grad year. And here's our breakdown by participation by gender in community service. Okay, and I'm gonna pass it over to Chris.
Thank you. As you can see, we have, what this slide shows is basically all of the additional student engagement opportunities that took place throughout the year. So in addition to participating in fine arts and clubs and activities and sports and community service, this litany of bullet points demonstrates that we tried to reach out to every single child that we possibly could throughout the year, despite being in a pandemic and despite not having our students here with us every single day. And I think it's really, quite honestly, when we divided up the slides and I realized that I had this slide, I said, this really isn't about athletics. This is really about our activities department and the clubs and activities group with Denise and Nicole Boyd and the incredible job they did making each and every one of these things happen. It was just really an incredible effort by them to make it happen. So I applaud all that they did. And not to put you on the spot, but were there any highlights from last year that really stood out to you?
Absolutely. We were able to give our seniors a senior send-off last year, something that was beyond our wildest dreams that we possibly were able to do. We had over 900 students come to the senior send-off. We were only off by 48 kids in that class. They all came out that evening to be with their peers for that last final hurrah. We had 4 food trucks out there, and we had staff volunteer their time to be with all these students for the last big push. The students had a blast. We had a DJ, we had food, we had activities. We were double dutching with girls. They had never double dutched before, you know. We were giving them experiences, playing tic-tac-toes on the field. Chris let us go on the football field, you know. We were just doing things. There's a long story behind that. We were just doing things and having a great time and giving these students the last opportunity to be with their classmates because they didn't get a prom. But we gave them something, and I think that stood out last year amongst the opportunity for our students to talk to the staff members here. The staff members here at ETHS make a difference every single day, from the custodial staff to our teachers, to our maintenance, to our electricians, to our community service directors. Everyone here has an input, and when students can give you a letter of appreciation from just saying thank you to them or making their day or seeing them in the hallways, it's an impact. And I think those are some things that really stood out. But we did class 2021 yards for all students again, acknowledging them. We see you. We know this is a tough time, but we still see you. We want to acknowledge you, that the efforts you're making here, that this graduation is going to be a big thing for you. And beyond that, we had virtual fairs. We had our social conscious series. They were all virtual, but all our students still attended. And it was a great feeling to see them feel rewarded about their work that they put in these activities here.
Can I add one?
Absolutely.
My favorite activities actually were the Monday Fun Days, which we did, I think it was starting February. In February, where we do in-person Monday experiences. And I think one of the first events to kick it off was tie-dyeing, which was like, we had like 40 plus students sign up immediately. We were like, oh my God, we got to buy more buckets, more stirring sticks, more
Home Depot runs were real. Yeah.
There were just so many students who came out, and like those in-person experiences, even some online experiences. In the community service club, we did like a Friday fun day where we would play like Among Us online. And I think one of the most powerful things about all those activities is I saw so many students who actually I think in a typical year, they would find their niche friend group. But at these days, there'd be so many students with like, different interests and so on, but they were all having like the best time just connecting with each other. Like the crosstalk was very funny about what their favorite bands were or who they thought were terrible. But the fact was that they were all there together and meeting each other in the same place at the same time and just enjoying each other's company. So I really enjoyed being able to lead those activities.
All right, I'm gonna talk about one more. Besides Fun Day Mondays, we had also these Spirit Bears for our staff awards. We did them virtually, but we got some input from our students too, asking them about which staff member made you feel this. What did they do? How did they create this feeling for you? And on Fridays, we would call a staff member at like 7:30 in the morning and tell them, hey, you had to be on this call. And they'd be like, oh my God, what did I do? And then we would surprise them and say, hey, today's your day. You are the Spirit Bear winner for this week. And we would have this card and beer and certificate for them and then read this blog from people in the building and students about how good they were for them. That was a game changer. It kept the momentum of the morale of this building, that this is a safe space and we're all in this together moving forward. But all of us did this thing, Community with Willie. Well, we got in the van, Chris drove us around. We had Willie with us, and we went around the community. If you remember that.
I forgot about that.
We went around in the school van, minivan, and Marcus was with us, Dr. Campbell was with us, and we went around different spots in the community, and we highlighted Willie, and we had so many community members so happy to see Willie. So happy to be a part of this little moment. We were creating. Kids at the playground saw Willie for the first time. So it was like introducing this great energy of ETHS to the Evanston community. So there was just a touch of things that we've done, but they were all rewarding in so many different ways.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that back up. That was a lot of fun. That was in place of our normal homecoming.
Yep.
Pep rally. It was an all-day pep rally all over the city. It was really cool. So as we, in conclusion, we want to look ahead and we want to identify ways that we can improve. And we're going to kind of divide and conquer these bullet points, and I'm going to tackle this first one because it's really near and dear to my heart. Been talking about this for a long time and trying to do little things here and there. And the bottom line is that we need to, and we are actually actively already begun this process a couple months ago. We have to break up the system of how things are done with youth participation in sports and activities in Evanston, bottom line. And that's part and parcel with working with, in case of athletics, I've contacted all 20 different youth sports organizations to set up one-on-one conversations with them and to ultimately bring everybody together for a summit on how we're going to work together to provide opportunities for children of color in Evanston. We have to do it. We have to do it at a young age so they feel comfortable, so they feel accepted, so they feel wanted and needed to be involved in those programs, because by the time they get to Evanston, as we've had this conversation too many times at this table, by the time they get to Evanston, it's very, very difficult to crack into some of these sports that require years and years of skill buildup prior to that. And that's not just sports, that's also fine arts, and that's other clubs and activities as well. But we are trying to kind of lead the way this year with this outreach. And I have to say, I've been very impressed and appreciative of every single one of those youth sports programs, except for one, got back to us within 3 days' time. And we're already probably halfway through the conversations with all of them. And we have a really intricate and I think exciting opportunity for how we're going to roll that out. But I'm not going to get into it just yet because we need it to be a collaborative effort. But I'm very encouraged by the inroads we're going to make, especially this next year with changing how this game is played in future years. What's that? Pun intended, 100%. If you know me, pun intended.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and tackle the second one. We're developing and improving approaches to communicating with students and families via technology. As you guys know, the students here all over the world, technology is everything for them. They live on their phones, their devices, everything goes to that. And so right now we're collaboratively working with our tech team here at ETHS to create an app. our student activities department, our model upstairs is to create a revolving door of activities in that space for our students in their space. And so with doing that, we are really trying to figure out a way to have an app that they can know what's going on daily in this space, what activities we're providing, and also ways to support the other 3 departments also on this app. So it's in the works, we're working on it, but that's the way we're approaching technology and the way to emphasize growth within our departments for everybody else too, to participate in them too.
Yeah, and for the next one, within fine arts, you know, we're trying to be mindful of kind of like where students are right now and not rebuilding too quickly in a way that they're not ready for. You know, and for whatever reason that is, returning to school, continuing to live in a pandemic, you know, relearning how to balance academics and activities. So we're really trying to focus on just kind of rebuilding in a way that considers where they are. And so far it's been going really well. I would relate it to the metaphor of what I think it would be like to drive with a teenager learning to drive. You know, it's like we slam on the gas and then slam on the brake and, you know, just kind of that jerky motion forward and back. But we're really just trying to stay connected with where the kids are right now, continuing to provide opportunities, but also laying a foundation for the future that's going to help us continue to have a really strong program.
And then lastly, for community service, one thing that we noticed, especially last year, when everyone was remote and online, is that our online tools are actually really difficult to navigate. I know for sure that more than 24% of our students were out there doing service and being involved. One of my favorite moments, and I finally met this student in person last week actually, but we made a video for FASH, the Freshman Advisory Study Hall, about how to turn in their hours. And this one student, he turned in over 100 hours for volunteering with the corner store, where he volunteered every single Saturday from the beginning of the pandemic, essentially, to distribute groceries. And he actually still does that. And when I met him, I was like, you're that guy who's so involved and does service. You're like a service superstar. He's like, I am, it's true. And he was like, yeah, I actually still do it. I was like, well, I'm waiting for you to turn in your hours again. He's like, can you show me how to do it again? And so just noting that, you know, before, and when I was an intern here in 2015, we used paper and pen, and students would have to get signatures. And when I came back here in 2019, we were still doing the same thing. So there has to be a change to meet students where they're at, and for them to more easily be able to record and really show us what they've been doing out there, because it's a tool really for them. The service transcript is for them to be able to reflect on what they've done. It's not really just for us to see all these numbers, right? But we want to highlight the important work that they're doing and just make sure that they have the tools to be able to do that. So that's something that we're kind of working on this year, is like looking at different platforms and making sure that we find a platform that really works, not just for us, but for our students.
So I know we probably blew out of our time, like way out of the water, and we went way long. So I apologize for that, but it's 4 different departments involved with the student life here at ETHS, so please forgive us for that. And thank you for giving the opportunity to speak to you. I'm sure you guys have some questions, and we're happy to entertain those now.
Thank you. I just want to start off by just saying thank you to all 4 of you and to your departments. I know you all come with this team of people who are supporting and working with you, and to the students as well who teach us every day, right? And thank you, Chris, for highlighting our tech department, because they have sustained us in ways that we never thought would be possible. And the creativity that it takes to do these things online is amazing. And I only saw some of it, but I know that I was really so blessed when I would see some of these technology that, what was that stew you guys made? That was amazing. So, and just so many examples of the Friday songs, and it's just great. So thank you for keeping the students engaged, and thank you also for noticing who's missing, and how you can, I know I often ask the question, when I see students of color not as involved, or I see the numbers, it's been a hard year, and a lot has happened. And you're right, we can't really compare numbers because it's been such an unusual year, but I still notice how few students of color, African-American students, are present. And, you know, some of these activities we know tend to be missing those students. So thank you for thinking of ways to engage students of color. That's really important. I mean, it's what we're all about. And we all benefit, everybody benefits from their presence and their experiences. So, board, questions? Pat?
So I wanted to start by saying thank you as well to all of you and everybody you represent. And don't apologize for going long, because actually you brought so much energy and genuine excitement. And if even a part of what you showed us tonight transferred to the kids this year, thank you even more, because everybody struggled, and that you were able to do all this. And, you know, I saw some little pieces of this, but you saw lots of it, and you not only saw it, you actually made it happen, so thank you. I'm really excited about your update, Chris, on the meeting with youth sports. I know we've been talking about having a better representative, you know, having all of our students represented in our sports and activities, and so I think that's a great step. It's so important. But a question kind of coming out of that is, and maybe you don't have an answer right now, maybe it's more to think about, but, you know, Taya, I'm sitting there, I mean, we've talked in the past that sports and activities and service and arts and are almost a tier 1 intervention, if you will. It's a way to engage kids and to support students, and Lord knows we've had a lot of students struggling. And so I really encourage you to think about what you learned this year and how you can apply that when, God willing, it's back to whatever normal is, but we get to see kids' faces and they can walk around the hall without fear of getting sick all the time. Because I think that we're a big place, and one of the things I love about what we do is trying to make it smaller, but that's a lot of work. And what you all do is so important. Think of all the examples you just gave, and you couldn't stop. You had so many that you loved. So the kids feel that way too, and we need that sense of belonging, I mean, now more than ever. So I really hope you can take from all that you've learned and figure out, how do we, you know, are teachers making recommendations to you, Denise, to get a kid involved, or social workers giving those recommendations, whatever it is. I don't know the path, that's for you guys to figure out, but I do think that's so important. And then the other piece I wanted to ask about, and I know COVID year is so crazy, but I wonder, to what extent are kids able to play a sport and be in a theater? You know, in the past, there's been harder. And, you know, my kids are old, so I'm talking about a long time ago, but, you know, it was challenging. You want to be dedicated, but you want to do more than one thing. And even sometimes sports overlap, like preseason for one is kind of finishing up the other. So to what extent are our coaches and our club working together? You talked about how you collaborate. Is there collaboration kind of underneath to support kids? I mean, obviously, if there's a complete overlap, you can't play basketball and whatever, swim at the same time, or whatever it is. But, you know, if there's a little overlap, is there ways that we're trying to support kids? Because I know in the past, kids felt they had to make choices rather than maybe pursue two passions. So maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, I've seen countless times where coaches will interact with sponsors or directors to try to figure out how they can try to make something work for a student that wants to be involved in multiple activities. There are definitely times, though, where you can't do it all, and right. I think that's a lesson that kids have to learn as well. You can't be a full-time member of a play and also at the same time be involved full-time in a sport, sure. Because those demand a very serious level of involvement and engagement. But when we can make things work, we've definitely tried to always make that work. And we even put together, like 10 plus years ago, a little unwritten kind of guideline for how to resolve conflicts between different groups in our school, so that if a student had a performance versus a practice, the performance always took precedent. If they had a state level competition over a performance and something else, they would go to that, and just sort of some basic guidelines. So we've tried to structure things in such a way that allows our coaches and sponsors and directors to work better together without getting into conflicts. And I really can't think of any conflicts that I've seen in the last 5-6 years between these different departments. And I think a lot of it is, like Nick said before, I mean, we're really lucky that we not only communicate well together, but we genuinely enjoy talking to each other and trying to figure things out. So probably too much sometimes, but it's worked well, I think, to allow kids to be involved in more than one thing, because we don't want the stereotypical, jock and fine arts kid. To have someone be able to feel comfortable in multiple spaces is really a powerful thing. So it's something we want to have happen.
That's great.
I just wanted to piggyback on that, just to touch bases with you, Ms. Savage Williams. Our social conscious series are not documented in our numbers. And a lot of our Black students in here take really strong leadership in those areas. Right now, we're getting ready to plan our next one. We're in the works of that, and we have about 50 students who come to our planning sessions every single Wednesday, and they meet with us, and they're in committees and sections about management and planning and career and who's going to be speaking and stuff like that. That doesn't get numbers.
Yes, right.
So I really want to highlight that tonight. Our social conscious series does not get numbers in these data. But there are so many students involved, Black students involved, between our Black Student Summit to our LGBTQ+ Summit. They don't have numbers, but the involvement level of our students in this place are large. So I just want to touch bases on that. So you
Yeah,
can
I
also
appreciate that.
get a feel for that they might not see them in these particular areas, but they
Sure.
are involved in
Sure.
other things. To touch bases with, when it comes to you, Pat, about involvement in our students being able to do more than one thing, one of the cool things that we have right now is our online tools, where students can see when clubs meet. So if there's a club that meets on a Tuesday and Thursday, and you have a free day on a Thursday, you can kind of look at the area to see it. Oh, if I see something that I like on a Thursday, let me get involved with that because I have the availability for it. And that's something that Kathy Roseman, who's part of the student activity department, she updates that on a regular basis. If a student has an idea for any kind of club they want, they can go to her. Hey, I want to start a cartoon club. There's a kid who comes in here every Thursday and plays video games with about 17 other children. That's their thing. We have a club for it, and they love it. So there's just ways to really get involved, and we have tools for them to see what clubs we do offer and the times and places that they meet, and sponsors information so they can email them to get questions answers if they have any questions too. So that's something we also do.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we have two more. Gretchen?
Oh, sorry, Gretchen.
Two quick questions. Just looking at the PowerPoint with the data, two things jumped out at me. One was that there seems to be a pretty, very large difference between low-income and non-low-income students and their level of participation. It's 40 percentage points higher for non-low income. So I'm wondering if we're doing some sort of careful looking at whether we have created either real or perceived barriers based on cost to access into these activities. And I know there's a lot of free stuff, but that doesn't help with a potential perception about cost or obstacles. And it may be something more remote from the activity, things like, how do I get to and from something that's off-site, for example, when I don't have a car, I don't have a parent who can drive me, that kind of thing. So I'm wondering, I'd be interested in hearing what we're doing to look at that, because it seems like an obvious area for improvement. And I'll just get my second thing out there and then throw it open to you so we can keep moving. The second thing that jumped out at me, and you may have answered the question when you were talking about reporting of community service hours. There's a rather stark disparity by gender in participation in community service. And I was thinking about, for example, in the not-for-profit world, it's so heavily dominated by women. And it seems to me really unfortunate if we're buying into that kind of gender typing or perpetuation of that sort of gender bias in historically underpaid fields. And I mean, I don't mean to make a bigger deal out of this than it is. It may just be that boys don't get around to reporting their community service hours. Maybe as simple as that, but it seems to me that that's a narrative that we need to also be working on and addressing moving forward. So those were just the two little points I saw.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that, especially, I don't remember the exact percentage drop for the demographics and gender.
27.
Oh, I meant versus last year. But I know that it also.
Yeah, and I'm not even, you're
Right.
I just also want to say, normally I would be insisting on those sorts of comparisons. It makes no sense, to your point earlier, to do that this year, so you're
Right,
off the
for
hook
sure.
there.
But to note also that the gender gap is also something that is pretty persistent. Something that we've actually have been thinking through this year is that, especially for, as you were noting, like low-income students, even male students who typically don't either report or are doing service activities, we really want to focus on what we can do here at school. So noting that, students, it's already a touch point for them. So they might be interested in staying after school, or many of them have study halls and free periods and so on, where they're looking for not just a place to study, but also a place to hang out. And when we have those touch points with them, which are really powerful, we say, well, do you want to do service? And they're like, sure. Like, I like hanging out in your office, or I have this free period, I would like to do XYZ in my time. And so we've been able to connect students this year in many different ways that kind of do fill in some of those gaps that we were seeing. Because they're already here, they're taking that time, and they're always like very interested. They're like, oh, you mean I get to go to other people's classes and count all the socks for the sock drive that we're doing? I would love to do that. Oh, I get to go to the nurse's office and find other students to give passes to. I would love to do that. Oh, I can do this and this. I didn't know that I can do that actually during the school day. So we are finding that, I hope next year we will see a difference. But that's something that we really want to focus on, is like, is it because these students aren't recording their hours? Is it because maybe they don't know about these opportunities and we're not finding ways to engage them? So we're definitely thinking about those numbers for sure.
And I think we probably could assist in that a little bit, because I know we have a lot of teams that do a lot of community service hours, but they think about it as just something they're doing for their team and don't even equate it as a community service project that they would get hours for. So I bet you we're probably missing a chunk of those hours that way too. So I have to take a note on that one.
No worries. And to note too, actually, we do have a lot of students who, once they get to junior and senior year, they're like, oh, I don't need to record my hours anymore. I love doing what I do. I don't think I need to put it on a transcript. I see someone nodding over here, an upperclassman.
You know, I totally appreciate
yeah.
that as a lawyer who used to have to record all the hours I
Yeah.
work and billable clients and all that. It was brutal. Who wants to do that?
Right, exactly.
It's absolutely not fun. It's tedious. It's a chore, so whatever way you can make it easier, because
But just
Yeah.
make the recording process so easy.
Right, exactly.
Can I
Working on it.
quickly add one? Were you
Yes,
just going to kind
absolutely.
of put a
Yes.
bow in it?
Yes.
And I thank you also for your report and the energy. And I think about the numbers, right, because it surprised me. I thought they would be higher, considering everything that I do see happening here. So maybe it's part of the count is flawed. And I think about the work that I know you're doing, Chris, with IHSA and equity, and thinking about how to build capacity within not only our staff, but our kids in their understanding, and how that maybe could translate into the other areas of our student life, so that the places are spaces that kids want to be in and feel are safe, or at least will hold them. And so I don't know if that work's going to translate. It's all over our conference, and I think it's very powerful. So I hope that it leaves sports and carries over, even though maybe in some of these other areas it's more naturally there. But I was just thinking about that as one way to build numbers into these spaces. So.
Certainly.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just was going to say, what we're looking to try to do within the world of sports in the next year, now that we've started this dialogue with youth programs and and actually have created a nonprofit to also work alongside with us, it is going to be really, I think, unique and different and a little bit revolutionary in how we approach it. And so but it's a pilot. Like, we don't know if it's going to really be effective, and if it is, and it translates, yeah, of course. I mean, we love we'd love everyone to jump on board that idea.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it just speaks to Gretchen's concern about the low-income participation rates. If, again, just speaking for sports, if you're not involved, in order to get involved in a sport here, you really have to have played that sport earlier.
Yeah.
To play that sport earlier, it costs you thousands of dollars a year to play that sport, oftentimes.
Yep.
And that's just, it's not an option for a lot of low-income families. Instead of participating and playing games, they have to work or they have to support their family at home. And so we've got to figure out and rethink how those kids get those opportunities for no cost and have them still be meaningful and powerful enough to help them learn the sport and love the sport or the activity. So, you know, I don't think it's going to be simple, but I think it's going to be the most significant thing that we do in the athletic department during the time I'm here. And so if it works, when it works, yeah, I think we can copy and paste a lot of those things for other programs.
Well, and to Mira's point, I think, like, I was thinking mock trial, my daughter was big on that. It's a very white space by and large. There's no reason for that. So that's kind of, how do we go out and kind of make sure more kids, so what can we learn from the work you're doing? I know it's different, but what can we learn that could help Service or mock trial or some other organization to do that outreach? So I think I'm on the same page as Mira. I think, like, the way you're collaborating is great, and if you can start to share some of the things you're doing to improve, I think all the better.
Well, and I was thinking also about the survey and the education that's happening on teams regarding hate speech and regarding the ways in which they behave. Because some of our spaces are so segregated, there are kids in there who aren't necessarily helping to make it open for everybody. I'm not putting it, it's not just their responsibility, our kids are amazing. But, or the hidden curriculum, how do you get to YAML? Well, you know, because of what happened in 8th grade, or what happened, you know, and so that's also what I'm thinking. Not only the club, you know, we're a club community without question. So there's that financial, but then there's the you know, just the ways in which we also work together that I'm thinking about in that way too. Okay,
Yeah.
but.
Well, and I'm thinking community. I mean, we should be able to do this at Evanston.
Yeah.
I guess I was thinking exactly what you all were thinking, and my vision, my hope is that we put just as much emphasis on this engagement and what this does to the wellness of a child as we do creating a literacy goal. Because we know that there are kids, by the time they get to us in 9th grade, they have not been given the opportunity to play for EBSA. They know nothing about what it means to audition and prepare, and for a theatrical program. And the only thing they know about community service is what their parents telling them to do at church or, visiting grandma, right? But we have not, as a community, because we are so resource rich in that opportunity, made engagement a priority for the wellness of our children. And, there are some community members that absolutely know that engagement can save a life, literally. And so that's my vision. When we start talking about a child's wellness, that it's beyond the classroom, and it's that being accepted on the basketball court, even if I get cut, I'll take score. We have to think that way. We have to keep our kids safe, and we have to engage them in a early age. And so that requires partnering with District 65. It requires partnering with community organizations to do this. But I think we can do it if we look at the holistic well-being of a child and not just the grade that they output. So that's all I want to say. They led it up well, but thank you all. You know, this is probably one of my favorite things to hear about. So I truly appreciate it, but it's my favorite thing because I know that it can literally make a difference in a child's life. So thank you all.
And we're preparing them to be broader citizens.
Yep.
And to really be a part of our society in a way that doesn't always happen, that they really can learn and experiment on how to use their strengths and how to make this work for them. So, so thank you. I love this report as well. So thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. Awesome. All right, speaking of, I don't know how to make a segue here. Speaking of an unusual year, how's that? An unusual year. We're now going to hear a COVID-19 update.
And board, as Taya Kinsey, Dr. Kinsey comes forward, I just want to point out a couple of things about as she reports. First of all, Dr. Kinsey is the associate principal for student services, which is a huge responsibility and has just huge number of people. How many people do you supervise, Taya? 80 some, or what is it?
It's a little over 90.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Directly report to
Right. Well, yes. Well, exactly. I mean, that are in her department. Yes. I mean, she has registrar's office, nurse's office, all the counselors, all the social workers. I mean, it just goes on. Now, the reason I want to say that is, besides that, I am affectionately calling her the czar of COVID in this school district. And I say that with just. COVID queen. Oh, that might be my second one. But I have to tell you, in all frankness, she puts in so many hours day and night, 7 days a week, and has been doing this now for months, coordinating our COVID effort. That I just want you to know that she deserves unbelievable accolades. And even before you speak, Taya, Dr. Kinsey, I just want to say publicly, we really appreciate and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon, for that introduction. All right. It's been a year.
All right, well, good evening.
And I don't know who's going to speak first, but and you know these other two folks up there too. And I'll turn it over to our team.
Thanks, Eric. Eric and I did not compare notes on this, but I was going to start our presentation off tonight also thanking Dr. Kinsey. She has done an amazing job at helping us with the complexities of COVID-19, with our procedures and practices and all of the above. I mean, she's just done a tremendous job. And so we continue to navigate these challenges as every other school in our conference, in our community, in our area, and in the country. And I just, would like to say that this is hard, right? And I know we get that intellectually, but I don't think I can state it enough how complicated this school year has been. We thought last year was difficult. This is a different difficult. And it's been, stress levels have been high, anxiety is high because of all of the uncertainty and sickness and loss. We've seen school refusal and school avoidance manifest in so many different ways, mental health, staffing challenges, and as I said, stress is very high. It's a difficult time to be in education. And so as we share reports and talk through various things throughout the district, just ask yourself a question. What impact has the pandemic had on X or had on Y? because it has impacted everything. Being back in person has been one. It's been beautiful, it's been wonderful, but it's also had a lot of challenges. But we are not the school that we were March 13th, 2020, although we're all here. It's very different. So we are navigating these challenges and doing the best that we can given the circumstances. And we're going to update you tonight on our mitigation strategies and adaptive pause, COVID data and shield COVID testing, and really talk about how we are trying to care for one another. Because at the core of it all, that's what this is about. How we look out and care for one another. That's what wearing masks and all of these things are about. Dr. King has a quote, given the fact that we've just celebrated his birthday, that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And in this case, it's wearing a mask. Following the guidance provided by the IDPH, ISB, and the CDC, and our Evanston Health Department, as well as the Medical Advisory Board, we're trying to do right by students, we're trying to do right by our families, and caring and keeping one another safe. Definitely trying to do right by our staff who have come every day, despite so many different challenges, doing the best that they can. COVID mitigation strategies for second semester. We will continue to follow the science and the guidance from the Illinois Department of Public Health and from the from ISB, the Evanston Health Department, the CDC, and our Medical Advisory Board. Mitigation strategies from the first semester included, supporting and vaccinations, vaccination clinics, universal mask wearing is recommended by the CDC, including in consultation with the Evanston Health Department, PPE supply, sanitation of classrooms, offices, and spaces, weekly COVID testing, lunch and outdoor spaces, tents, contact tracing, collaboration with the school-based health center for testing, shield testing for unvaccinated students, communication and signage for health protocols. For second semester, we're engaging in additional mitigation strategies. COVID testing for all students, COVID testing at ETHS option for staff as of January 25th, 2022. Expand grades for 9 through 12 for open campus lunch, except for students who are on social probation or detention probation. Lunch locations to be expanded for winter, even in Beardsley Gym, and that was a pivot. We've been pivoting a lot this year. Vending machines turned off during class. Pop machines are off. I hate to say pop machine. Pop. I say pop. Soda machines are off from 8:40 and on at 3:30. Snack machines are off at 8:30 and on at 11:15 to 2 and off from 2 to 3:30. Announcements about mask wearing, fully covering the mouth and nose, beginning of classes and passing periods, announcements in the cafeteria, lunch spaces to wear a mask appropriately when even taking a bite, taking a drink, etc. Kind of like when you go to the airport and you're on a plane. Athletic events, we're reducing spectator capacity to 50%, no concessions and no food or drink in the gym to ensure proper, consistent mask wearing by spectators, requirement for spectators and students to wear masks and removal if they refuse to do so. Contact tracing, expanding the athletics and the nurses team. We've hired yet another contact tracer as of this weekend, and to expedite our notification process, updated for streamlining and the expedition of notification for COVID positives for both staff and students. And I'm going to turn this over to Pete.
Thanks, Marcus. You're welcome. All right. Well, let me first emphasize that ETHS prioritizes in-person instruction and safety consistent with state expectations and requirements. And, what that means through the joint guidance is that, and this is a quote from ISB and IDPH, in-person learning with the appropriate protective measures should be both safe and essential to students' mental health and academic growth. So we've had questions about the adaptive pause and also e-learning through emergency days. So here is some context, and I will walk through how they're separate. What matters most in this situation is that we do not have the same authority that we had last year. That's the reality. Now, what does that mean? Well, last year, the governor had an executive order for local school districts to decide if they would be remote instruction and learning. School districts no longer have that authority. It's gone. So we have to move, we have to move forward in our thinking. The order from this year, from the state, is that we prioritize in-person instruction. Now, I know it's a popular notion, but e-learning is not the answer here. We have 5 emergency days each year for e-learning. We've used 1 already, we're down to 4. The reality is that if we exhaust our emergency days, then we make them up at the end of the school year in June, during the summer, after we get out in May. Okay, that's the adjustment. That's the reality. One of the things I want to point out, because if I don't, I mean, it's a huge, huge issue, is that an adaptive pause, according to the state guidelines, an adaptive pause for remote learning is not an option in response to staff shortages in schools. That's critical to understand here. We can't go on an adaptive pause because of a staffing shortage. What do you do in that situation? You take an emergency day and you make it up in June. It's just the reality. This is what we are, these are the rules. This is the board on which we are navigating, okay? And you know, those days, those 4 days that are left, those used to be called snow days. And that hasn't changed because we still live in, you know, in the Chicagoland area, often called, sometimes called and referred to as Shiberia. That's Taya's notation, Shiberia. And you know, reality is that we have taken snow days as emergency days in the past. Not saying it's going to happen, but that's really why they're there. The decision to go on adaptive pause was not one that was made lightly, and I'm going to walk through the what, why, and how of adaptive pause. A school district may enter into an adaptive pause only in consultation with the local health department. When the large number of new cases makes it difficult for schools and the local health department to conduct prompt investigations to identify and to exclude/quarantine close contacts, or if there is an unsafe environment due to a lack of mask wearing or testing, adaptive pauses can be useful to ensure individuals who are potentially infectious are excluded from school. That's it. So, we went on an adaptive pause, and I'm going to talk through that adaptive pause process. We met twice with the Evanston Health Department to consult prior to going on adaptive pause, as we saw an unexpected and unexplained increase. On 12/15/21, we met after having only 52 student COVID positive cases from 8/16/21 through 12/10/21. And then, in a 2-day span, 12/13 and 12/14, we saw an increase of 53 COVID positive cases in 2 days. We planned cancellation of non-essential events and activities and meetings to be in effect on 12/16 and sent this out on 12/16 in the morning and plan to review further data on the morning of 12/16. On 12/16/21 in the morning, prior to going on lockdown, we again consulted with the Evanston Health Department and discussed increased mitigation strategies to be implemented. In consultation, this is key, right? We don't have unilateral decision-making here. In consultation with the Evanston Health Department, Dr. Witherspoon decided to go on adaptive pause, right? Only after consultation. By 12/17, the total of student COVID positive cases for the week was 129. So what you're noting there is exponential growth. Well, on winter break, we met a third time with the Evanston Health Department, discussed the adaptive pause that had ended on 12/23/21, identified and consulted on additional mitigation strategies, Evanston community COVID data, and our data regarding COVID positive cases over break for staff and students, and discussed plans to return to in-person instruction at ETHS as originally planned, and consulted with the Evanston Health Department. And the Evanston Health Department supported us, was supportive of all this. We'll continue to consult with the Evanston Health Department, including their recommendations for us to wear masks and follow the CDC guidelines for schools. The difference between when we want an adaptive pause in December and now is that we have additional mitigation strategies, including planned diagnostic identification as an intervention and mitigation strategy with testing of all students, yielding 122 COVID positive cases. You'll hear about that later. Taya will speak to that piece of data. Our SHIELD third-party partner noted how impressive it was that we had such compliance and high numbers with SHIELD testing, the number of students tested, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So we added updates on our dashboard with SHIELD info and context for 1/14/22 as we work to share information in timely ways. So we do update that dashboard. That's significant on Fridays. It's a go-to. As we work to ensure clear communication, transparency, and streamlining ETHS COVID notification emails will not be sent to entire classrooms where a person has tested positive, but ETHS will continue to contact, trace, and communicate with students and parents and guardians regarding close contacts. That's important. It's a close contact situation. Encourage vaccinations as well as boosters for all. Our proof of COVID vaccination, and many colleges and universities are going to this staff proof of vaccination and student proof of vaccination on their dashboard, and some of those colleges and universities nationally are only reporting those things right now. But ours, we have 94% of our staff, and proof of vaccination of our students is 93%. And booster proof provided by staff is 358, and we just started collecting the proof of booster, so that's important to note. And now I'm going to turn it over to Taya.
All right, thank you very much. You know, we're going to try to walk through a little bit here to talk about the data, but I just want to revisit briefly the fact that this really is a we're all in it together, and sometimes it truly has been harder than others, and man, has it been difficult in the last several weeks for many, many reasons, and so I wanted to recognize that and the continued efforts of how everybody keeps showing up, even when it's super hard. So, and we're exhausted, and we think that we've kind of ended our deep resource pool and had to dig deep again. So I wanted to recognize that, and also, so pleased that we just hired another contact tracer. But just to really give a shout out, I'm gonna give lots of accolades to a lot of people, but our nurses, and our contact tracer, some of our student services leaders, you would see these emails coming through when we were in the midst of this at midnight, 4 in the morning, right? These are not good well-being practices, but when you're in crisis, you step up. And that's what our teams have continued to do. So we appreciate that support. When we think about the COVID data, we also recognize our entire staff has stepped up. Our teachers, our operations, everyone has continued to step up. And so this isn't just a reflection about students, because I just wanted to continue to honor that. When we look at this, though, one of the things that we did was added additional information to our dashboard to increase context for folks. The number 311 that we posted on Friday, I think, was pretty alarming for folks, and we understand why. As of January 14th, we had 311 new positive student cases reported to us between January 7th and January 14th. What we discovered, and what we further contextualized and added to our dashboard, was that of those 311 new reports, 183 of those were from winter break or the adaptive pause and had not yet been reported to us. So we always have to include the new reports, but it doesn't mean they were all positive as of last week. In fact, 183 were from the previous several weeks. So I want to make sure to contextualize that for everyone. And further to note, we are not minimizing the number at all of the fact that when we're going to walk through the other numbers, but we also want to make sure to keep in mind what the different pieces of the facts are. 151 of the 311 were off quarantine or isolation by January 10th when we started back in person. And 128 of the 311 were reported to us as testing positive that between January 7th and January 14th. And were on quarantine or isolation at some point as of January 14th. So you can see that's why the number one, several folks had said, well, why are we having such low quarantine numbers if we have such high positive numbers? The number that we take for quarantine or isolation as of the date that we're noting it, January 14th, is the number of students who are on quarantine or isolation at that moment. What we have to continue to track is the numbers of COVID positive cases that have been reported to us that week. That doesn't mean they're still on isolation. And as you all know from the new CDC guidelines, having significantly reduced the number of days, we're going to continue to see those things not match up even without having winter break to kind of confound some of this. So we wanted to contextualize that a little bit. And then you can see we had 122 students test positive through SHIELD. We tested, and we'll walk through a little bit more of this on the SHIELD numbers, all of our students on January 11th and 12th. And 6 COVID positive cases were reported to us as newly having been tested positive last week between January 7th and January 14th. So when we think about our staff data, kind of similarly wanting to contextualize, 41 new positive staff cases were reported to ETHS from January 7th and January 14th. However, again to contextualize, very important, 29 of the 41 had tested positive over winter break or adaptive pause. We just hadn't learned of them yet until the time between January 7th and January 14th, not unlike our experience with the students. 24 of the 41 that you noted on the dashboard were off quarantine or isolation by the time we returned on January 10th. And 12 of that 41 tested positive between January 7th and January 14th, and we're still actually on quarantine or isolation as of January 14th, which is why you see, again, that discrepancy between receiving the report of 41 versus 12 folks still being in quarantine or isolation as of the 14th. So SHIELD COVID testing. We did a lot over break in preparation for testing our entire school the very first week we were back. And, you know, I mentioned that I can't talk about SHIELD COVID testing without giving and honoring the ways that our staff last week was extra flexible. I was going to say we do the most, but that's not usually a positive thing in kid terms. So we go above and beyond in so many ways. And one of them is we do extra sanitizing beyond what is required, which means that many of our staff and our teachers were being extra flexible around, okay, we have a COVID positive case and we've just learned of this, so we need to be flexible and move some classrooms and be responsive right away. And that just demanded even more from staff and caused more anxiety along the way too. And want to recognize that, yet we were so committed to our consistency of some of these practices and doing the extra. And so just really want to thank our teaching staff, a huge amount of gratitude to our IT, our operations, our communications, and our PE department, who somehow has really taken on this commitment to keep everyone safe, both from a well-being perspective physically as well as social emotionally. Marie Levatino, our PE and Wellness Department Chair, has been a real leader and stepping up in this nonstop and being willing to incorporate testing through PE and Wellness. I have to be honest with you, even our third-party partner through SHIELD has continued to say, other high schools don't see these numbers of compliance. They were stunned at the high levels of compliance last week alone, and it's a reflection of incorporating it into our instructional time, yet working really hard to not negatively impact instructional time. So I have to say, having been somebody who was pinch hitting on the days in the field house and getting to be at a capping station, that meant I got to hand out caps at times while students were doing their process. I won't go into further detail right now. It was great to see the teachers, our PE and wellness teachers, right there with the kids, using this as, you know, an instructional moment and having really prepped them already. And everyone just coming together. It was really impressive. And we had some laughs along the way, including when Dr. Witherspoon came in and Marie Livatina was able to talk about it being a great day to be a Wildcat, even when we're doing COVID testing. So it was really impressive. So we wanted to just share and remind everyone of a couple things. There have been some questions about, well, how much are we paying for all this shield testing? As a reminder, luckily, we have been able to take advantage fully of the shield COVID testing. It is free for asymptomatic students. We wanted to then kind of walk us through a little bit. As you all know, we started for the unvaccinated students in the fall, and we are now moving forward with weekly. Today actually was our first now week-long of separating out Tuesday through Friday through the PE and wellness classes. And we're going to be continuing, so we will continue. We've added this to the dashboard as well. We'll continue to post those numbers, which won't be a perfect science because we're still going to be testing on Fridays. So you're going to see some, you know, a little bit of overlap on that. We did want to also share, you know, we are obviously contextualizing some of our numbers in terms of student absences on the 11th and 12th, but the fact that we had 2,569 students test in 2 days, we were really pleased with. 76 students, 2% of our students have opted out of shield testing, and 122 new cases were identified. And again, this is where we see testing as a mitigation strategy to be able to identify and disrupt transmission. So that's 3.3% of all students.
Ty, can you just, I missed how many have opted out?
Yeah.
What was that number?
76.
76.
Students have opted out. Yep, thank you. And of course, we're going to continue to focus on our weekly testing through the designated days in PE and wellness. And we're pleased that we have been able to offer this now to staff as an option, not a requirement, for staff to opt in as of next week, the week of the 25th. So in conclusion, we really want to say, you know, Dr. Campbell said it. This is, and we've said it many times, this is a different kind of hard. It continues to be. And we want to say thank you because you all have been nothing but supportive, and our staff really deserve it, as do our students and families. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the thoroughness of that report. Someone asked me today just the number, how many, what's the number? And I encourage them to watch the meeting tonight because it's just not so simple. It's not one number and this is our number. It's very fluid. There are just so many layers. So thank you for helping us see that, and I hope that person was able to see this. Okay, thank you so much. And I know it's hard. I'm feeling the hard as well. So, and you're right, Dr. Campbell, it is impacting all of us in many different ways, just about everything we do. And we're adults, and it's impacting students in more ways than we can imagine, or than they can even communicate or even identify. You know how sometimes kids don't even name what's happening. So, board, questions? Mira, you're like...
No, I was just going to say thank you for the clear dashboard. Not all schools have something so clear, so I wanted to thank you for that. I don't have a question. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, and I just want to say thank you to you and everyone else, because this is just overwhelming. And I've heard this from other districts too, that all remote was crazy hard, and then you came back. And it was even, like Marcus said, a different kind of hard. And so we just know how much that means to all of you and what that means to our students and their families and our staff and teachers. So just abundance of thanks for all you're doing. Because if you, hopefully, the last report kind of helps you remember that there is a positive, you know, what you're doing has such a great impact. And you are doing such amazing things for kids, even when they're struggling and they can't maybe tell you that you're helping them. So we'll tell you for them. So thank you.
All right.
I'll offer one last thank you to everyone, but also to say one of the things that I think, and I said this actually when we had yet another contact tracing meeting between our nurses and our contact tracers through school-wide efforts as well as through athletics today. And I think we often use the analogy of building the plane while in flight, right? Never has this been more true as we look at the contact tracing and how we think we're turning a corner, and then the corner looks very different than we thought that it was going to. So I want to say thank you to everyone, and thank you to the staff who give us feedback along the way. This isn't an easy journey for them, and sometimes to feel like they have no idea what's coming next, but they've continued to give us feedback, which has allowed us to be more responsive, and that's part of why we continue to build the plane in flight.
And I'll just end too, but thank you, Taya, for that. And I just end too by saying we need more grace, more understanding, more empathy as we go along the way, because this isn't the school that we necessarily want to run, it's the school that we have to run at this point in time.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Next item is me. I'm just going to talk very briefly about where we are with the superintendent's search. So as you know, we hired the ALMA group to walk us through this process. And they will be scheduling focus groups very soon. And this information is going to be out on the website starting tomorrow. So the focus groups will be with teachers and staff in designated groups, teachers, union leadership, other union groups as well, so non-teaching instructional and non-teaching staff. We will target community leaders. There will be groups for the community. There'll be parent groups, student groups. We will make sure that we reach out to our affinity groups as well. So we really are just doing this wide search. So that's going to happen. As of tomorrow, the survey is going to go live. So the link will be live on the website tomorrow, and it will be open from January 19th through January 31st, the 19th through the 31st. So that's going to happen. And then there are other steps that will happen as well, but this will certainly get us started, and we'll see this happening very soon. So I'm very excited about this. All right. So the next item is FOIAs, and Dr. Bavis, we have a few listed.
Yes, we have FOIAs from Agnew. We have 2 FOIAs from Sinat. We have 2 FOIAs from Meadows, a FOIA from Wilson, and a FOIA from Mendez, and the responses are in your packet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item is comments from the public. Dr. Bavis, do we have any comments from the public?
Yes, we do, and I'm going to read my introduction to public comment script. Speakers who have signed up for public comment will be invited in the order that they signed up to address the board for up to 3 minutes. I will keep time and signal you at the end of 2 minutes as a courtesy. I will let you know when time is up at the 3-minute mark in the event that becomes necessary. I'll actually go like 2, and I'll give you a little note that there's 1 minute left. Speakers are asked to come forward and speak at the lectern right here. Please state your name and address. Public comments generally pertain to school district matters, but comments about any individual are expressly prohibited. Please understand that the school board does not respond to public comment, but will listen carefully and will follow up as the board deems appropriate. Our first public comment for this evening is Amy Auerbach. And, yeah, right there.
Hello, my name is Amy Averbach. I have a son who is a junior here. Board of Education members, thank you for your ongoing commitment. And thank you to Dr. Witherspoon and Dr. Campbell for your January 11th communication regarding efforts to create a safer school building. I'm sure that we're all in agreement that we have exceptional kids here at ETHS. I'm also here today representing many families that share in the following sentiments. For some years, we have been concerned about gun safety and violence at Evanston Township High School. Since December 16th, 2021, we now believe our district has a systematic problem, and it is likely that students are bringing guns into school every day for various reasons. In the past 5 years, crimes against persons in Evanston have more than quadrupled from 139 to 646 incidents, according to the Evanston Police Department. Gunfire on school grounds in the U.S. have more than tripled from 61 to 187.
2 minutes.
Reports of school gun violence in Illinois have gone from 0 to 12 incidents, and that's from everytownresearch.org. Everytown Research and Policy also reports that children exposed to violence and crime are more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol, suffer from depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, fail or have difficulties in school, and engage in criminal activity. Evanston, and sadly many other local communities, are not immune to these issues. In Illinois, students that bring guns into school face expulsion. We would like to know if the community understands the consequences of that. Recently, a group of ETHS parents launched 2 actions. Parents are researching weapons detection companies, and later this evening, you will all receive an email about a potential system that could be installed at ETHS.
1 minute.
It's affordable, quick, and seamless. Building entry maintains a school environment, provides state-of-the-art technology, and ease of use by current security staff. Please verify this information for yourself, but we feel this may be a good option. Secondly, parents are constructing a petition. The petition will respectfully be asking the board to, 1, commit to researching weapons detection systems before the February 2022 board meeting, and 2, include this urgent discussion as an agenda item at the next board meeting. I am familiar with and have compassion for the students that are carrying guns, and I also have compassion for their parents. Intense programming is desperately needed to ensure that these students remain in school despite the inability to carry a gun. As a community, it is important that we fight for these students' safety as much as the staff and other students at ETHS. They are all equally important. A weapons detection system will help protect these students from expulsion and injury or possibly death.
Sorry.
We must prioritize safety for all. We would like to see the language of 0 tolerance for guns entering the building starting now. We are committed to helping in any way that we can in this endeavor. Please keep us informed with frequent reports of the progress being made to keep guns out of the high school. Evanston Township has so many strengths. Diluting the urgency of installing a weapons detection system may be an anchor that pulls down the quality of the entire school. We have great students, teachers, and staff, and we want every day to be a great day as a Wildcat. Thank you.
Next up, we have Osberto Acevedo.
Hello, board members. I'll be reading a letter representing the fine arts teachers here at Evanston Township High School. The Fine Arts Department teachers at Evanston Township High School fully supports the prioritization of hiring teachers of color to promote the academic performance and social belonging of all of our children. Over the past years in the Fine Arts Department, the addition of teachers of color has had a positive and transformative effect. A school board policy that seeks to create representational diversity among all staff will solidify ETHS's commitment to providing the best education for all students. Our support for this policy rests on our conviction that equity is just, and from the research showing the academic environmental benefits to our students. We recognize the challenges that come with setting this goal. As fine arts teachers, we know the power of blending imagination, creativity, commitment, and perseverance to whatever goals we set for ourselves and others. We believe the district, contending with a shrinking pool of new teachers, must be persistent in the formation and implementation of ideas and professional partnerships that will help us recruit and develop diverse candidates.
2 minutes.
First, we should seek innovative methods to recruit and retain teachers of color. A broader professional community offers more support and connection not only for students, but for the hardworking and underrepresented staff members whom we need to support. Many students of color seek out mentors to whom they relate, and those educators spend lunches, planning periods, and after-school hours providing social, emotional, and academic support. One result is that the teachers who may feel most socially isolated themselves support an inordinate number of students beyond teaching and learning in the classroom. In addition, to further recruit teachers of color, we can follow the examples of some districts whose parapros and other staff seeking teaching certificates get their tuition subsidized. This has been instrumental in helping people of color who are already succeeding in making connections with students make a supported transition to leading the classroom. Our greatest untapped resource is the wealth of diverse and talented students we teach.
1 minute.
Let's extend a clear invitation and pathway through programs and scholarships that will lead more of our former students back to Evanston to teach. The board has the power to improve student learning, enhance working conditions for existing BIPOCU staff, and make one more bold step towards affirming our commitment to racial equity in Evanston. Sincerely, the fine arts teachers at Evanston Township High School. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Monica Lonnie.
Hi there, I'm Monica Lonnie, and I've been teaching here for 4 years. And I too want to echo what we've just heard. I have a letter from the English department signed by 34 members, which, and I'm not a math teacher, but I believe constitutes roughly 90% of our department. As members of the English department at ETHS, we insist that the board sets goals increasing our recruitment and retention of BIPOC licensed educators over the next 5 years. Only 17% of our licensed educators at ETHS are Black, and only 7% are Latinx. These numbers are far outpaced by the number of Black and Latinx students whom we teach. Specific to the English department, we have urgent concerns with regard to staffing. We have only one Black male licensed educator. We have no Latinx educators, and many of our Black educators in the English department are nearing retirement. It is well documented by educational research that students benefit when they see their own identities mirrored to them in the classroom. The current demographics at ETHS licensed teaching staff are 68% white. These demographics are bound to favor our white students above their BIPOC counterparts. So
2 minutes.
Something must change. We are sure that you agree that diversified teaching staff would be a benefit to all of us, but increasing and sustaining that diversity takes planning and dedication by all parties involved, including the board. Some action steps that might be taken include the following. Number 1, intentional recruitment. Number 2, partnership with educational programs around the nation, especially historically Black colleges and universities. Number 3, incentives for hiring. Number 4, access to support that addresses specific needs of our BIPOC teachers. And number 5, a careful review of our predominantly white school culture to remove potentially toxic situations. As stated by the ETHS Board Statement on Equity, we all have the responsibility to, quote, examine and eliminate institutional beliefs, policies, practices, and teaching that perpetuate racial disparities in achievement.
1 minute.
In this spirit, the board needs to prioritize the hiring and retention of BIPOC educators in order to heed our district's unique vision of true equity. And I have a hard copy of this letter if any of you need to review. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. That concludes public comment for this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Davis. Thank you to those who spoke. So we'll go straight through the agenda. The next item is board committee reports. Do we have any reports from board committees? Not yet. It's still early in the year. Mira? No.
Working on the foundation, decisions and what to do given COVID.
Yes.
So we'll report more soon.
Okay, thank you. All right, student board report. So Barbara.
I just want to start by saying the COVID response presentation was super helpful, just for me and the rest of like student union leadership team, just to present to the wider student body, because I know a lot of people don't tune in to these a lot of students don't tune in to these board meetings, but I do think a lot of students have been talking about what was presented. On social media, I've seen a couple of student groups talking about how they don't really like how we've come back in person, how they wish we took an adaptive pause after winter break, stuff like that. But I think that the information that was presented is super important in saying how ETHS cannot necessarily decide those things. And I'll be sure to present that to student union on social media, just people who I talk to, individuals every day. But even before we gained knowledge that ETHS didn't have the same authority as it did last year, I was talking to individuals that wanted to go back online, but, well, not wanted to go back online, but didn't feel as safe in person. And they still said that online is not the best option. So it's kind of like we're up in the air, students and staff as well. So I think providing this information to students will really help us kind of gain more knowledge and then make opinions. And I do think that a lot of opinions and demanding will be changed after hearing the statistics and just the message that ETHS cannot just go online as it could last year. So I think that's really helpful for me. And yeah, that's what most conversations have been focused on after we came back from winter break.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, Dr. Witherspoon.
You know, Barbara, thank you for that. I will just also lift up that I met by Zoom, but I met with our peer superintendents in our peer districts in the area. There are actually 11 of us who are part of this group. We're called North Cook, but we include contiguous Lake County, so, you know, whatever. But all the high schools are in session. All the high schools are following the state mandate that in-person instruction is required. But I'm very proud of what we're doing to mitigate and to try to do everything to be safe. And the other thing that I'll just point out, that you saw those numbers with 93% of our students and 94% of our staff vaccinated. We have something here that none of those high schools are able to equal. I mean, we are highly vaccinated, both in the city of Evanston as well as at the high school. And while it doesn't stop transmission, clearly we know from the national and the local experience, it really does mitigate the symptoms on people who have been vaccinated. Thank goodness. So thank you for lifting that up, and we'll continue. Thank you for, you'll be taking that message forward, and we'll continue to do it too. One thing you might want to do, by tomorrow, by probably midday, we will have this board meeting on online on our webpage, and might be able to tell people to mark go to whatever, hour or minute and just watch that segment, because I think that our team tonight did a fantastic job of explaining it, and it might help some people if they get to see that too. So thank you very much on that, Barbara. I also just have a few other things to highlight, that we have 6 of our students have been selected to participate in the 2022 Illinois Music Education Association All-State Conference. That's a major recognition, and they'll be participating January 26th through the 29th down in Peoria. We do have many upcoming events, and I just encourage, there's no way I can ever list all those in my report, but more importantly, I want to remind people that our website has a calendar of events, and it's real easy to check what's going on each day and each week. Deshaun Taylor and Taylor Mason of the Black and Brown and Breathing initiative are going to host a virtual event this Thursday, January 20th, and again on February 3rd for parents, students, and staff to connect to that process here as we end 2021 and now have started the new year. So would encourage people to check that out. FAN, as you know, is virtual again this year. And their next upcoming event is Thursday, January the 20th. Shaka Sengo is the author presenting, and this will be on Thursday. Monday the 31st is then CNN legal analyst Lauren Coates. So just a little highlight of those programs. Our next Wild Kid Academy is on Saturday the 22nd. And we always have a good turnout, and I just want to highlight that because we want to really keep encouraging students to come to Wild Kid Academy. And this one is a fun one to remind everybody of. Virtual course selection night for the incoming freshmen. That'd be the class of 2026, I believe. Mm-hmm. That class will actually be held on Wednesday the 26th. That would be next week, and Thursday the 27th. All those families are being notified about participating and everything. But this is a wonderful chance for students and parents of incoming freshmen to review our valuable information about our course guide and our course selection process. And yes, we are already gearing up to welcome the class of 2026. One of the things that I just want to highlight on that one is that it's been a strange coming to the high school for the last couple of classes. Mm-hmm. We have sophomores here who missed their whole freshman year in person at ETHS. And now it doesn't look like that's going to happen to the next incoming freshman class, but they're going to do a lot of virtual things just to get oriented to the school. And we're just going to have to make that work the very best that we can. So to everybody who participates in that, be sure you're here next week virtually, and be sure that you're going to have a great experience even if you don't get to be in the high school for that evening. And that concludes my report.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. So we're at the action items, and the first item is a public hearing concerning the intent of the Board of Education to sell not to exceed $6 million working cash fund bonds for the purpose of increasing the district's working cash fund. So the hearing to receive public comments on the proposal to sell bonds in an amount not to exceed $6 million for the purpose of increasing the working cash fund of the district is now called to order. I would like to open the discussion and explain that the reason for the proposed insurance of the bonds is to fund construction projects such as locker room renovations, window replacements with associated tuck pointing and masonry, roof replacements, IT network projects, and other capital projects as approved by the board. Ms. Rodino, do you have any additional information you'd like to present?
I do. I don't have a presentation per se, so I'll just stay here if that's okay.
Mm-hmm, sure.
I just want to make a few comments regarding the issuance of the bonds. So the district typically issues bonds every 4 years, so the last time we did this was in 2018. Typically, that's for an amount of between $5 and $6 million. Some of you who've been on the board a little longer might remember that we used to do a small bond issuance every 2 years, which means we would go through the ratings presentation and get that credit rating. And some things changed a little bit when the Washington National TIF closed. In combination with the funds that the district started receiving, in addition to just conservative spending habits overall, the district became able to fund a little more in capital projects, which we really need because, as we mentioned in December, we have well over $3 million a year in depreciation. So if you want to try to keep up with the building, so to speak, you should really be spending at least that much on your capital infrastructure. So because of the few circumstances that I just mentioned, what we've been able to do the last 4 years or so is do the bond issuance once every 4 years, and then in those off years, I don't know how to explain that, but in those other 2 years, so 2 years ago, we did what was called a debt certificate. It's a little bit easier. We got an interest rate under 2%. We didn't have to go out and do a bond rating. So we've been able to do that. The other nice thing about the debt certificates is they have a shorter payback. Bonds, typically you pay back, you can go 20 years. Our district has typically done 15, a little more conservative on not trying to stretch out the debt. So with the debt certificates to use in those off years to fund capital projects, we've been able to do a payback schedule of those for 10 years. So I think that's a really good conservative fiscal policy. And hopefully we'll be able to continue to have those shorter debt periods as long as the district can afford it. So President Savage Williams, you mentioned some of the projects. Just to expand on that a little bit, this summer will include the second year of the girls' locker room project, which was $2.3 million just by itself. Hard to afford multiple projects when one big thing might cost between $2 and $2.5 million itself. We're also finishing windows and tuck pointing on the Dodge side of the building, primarily the East School area. That was a $2.2 million project over 2 years. And nurses' office work, roofing work, and IT infrastructure projects like network fiber and hotspots and things that are more of a capital expense. So that really summarizes my info on the need for the debt issuance. One point of clarification I just wanted to give you about this this particular bond hearing. It's meant to receive input from public or board members, but there is no actual item that the board is voting on tonight other than adjourning the hearing once we're done. If you recall, in December, the board actually passed the resolution of intent to issue the bonds, which is then what we move forward from. And then in February, once we have offered the deal in a competitive market to get the best interest rate, we'll come back to you for approval on that in February. So we have a call scheduled this Thursday with a rating agency to rate the district, which is what we have to do in order to get that credit rating. So we're moving forward, and then we'll come back to you in February with the actual approval, the logistical approval. So that sums up my comments.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for explaining, and thank you for explaining that process to us. That's helpful. So are there any additional comments by members of the board? Are there any public comments concerning the proposal insurance of working cash fund bonds?
We have no public comment.
Okay, thank you. All right. Seeing that there are no more additional comments, can I get a motion and a roll call to adjourn the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. All right. So this hearing is adjourned. And again, thank you, Ms. Ordino, for explaining the process. Okay, the next item is approval of construction contract for renovation of health services or the nurse's office. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Yes. The next item is approval of Black History Month resolution, and this is going to be read by Mira Ante.
Okay, thank you. National Black History Month, February 2022. Whereas millions of people were taken from their homes in Africa in chains and were held in slavery, and whereas from 1619 to 1865, slavery was legal in the United States of America, and whereas 12 generations of blacks survived and lived in the United States as enslaved people with an incalculable human cost that continues to impact our society and culture. Whereas on the eve of the American Civil War, approximately 4 million enslaved African Americans lived in the southern region of the United States of America. And these enslaved people were the descendants of 12 to 13 million African forebears ripped from their homes and forcibly transported to the Americas in a massive slave trade dating from the 1400s, quote unquote. Whereas this forced migration is one of the greatest human tragedies in the world, in the history of the world. Whereas the celebration of Black History Month began in February 1926 with the vision of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, a noted historian committed to encouraging all people to learn about the contributions of outstanding African Americans. Whereas the students and staff of Evanston Township High School must continue to learn about and be mindful of African Americans on a national and local level who have worked to serve the public good. Whereas the ETHS community should welcome and learn from all people of color to support the destruction of beliefs and practices that racially segregate and hinder students from believing that the American dream is for everyone. Whereas the ETHS community should also continually dedicate itself to the principle of equal justice for all people, remain eternally vigilant against acts of racism and bigotry, and continue to be a leader in empowering all students through education. Therefore, we, the District 202 School Board, proclaim that in the celebration of past, present, and future exceptional African American leaders, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2022 as Black History Month at Evanston Township High School.
Thank you. Thank you, Mira, for reading that. Could I get a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. All right, the next item is the consent agenda, which consists of approval of minutes from December 13th, 2021, regular meeting, December 13th, 2021, closed session meeting, approval of bills, Treasurer's report from November 2021, personnel agenda that includes appointments to staff, support staff, change in status, educational stipend, resignations, support staff, safety, and board addendum, which includes release and change in status, stipend, correction, and other salary adjustment administrators. Could I get a motion for approval, please?
So moved?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes. Okay, thank you. So we're at old and new business. Does anybody have old or new business to present? Polling of the board, is there anything else, anything other added comments? If not, can I have a motion for adjournment? All approve?
I move
Aye.
we adjourn, yes, aye.
I guess we didn't really need a motion.
Go ahead, Gretchen, just do it for the sake of.
Okay. All right, we're adjourned at 9:48.